It is my distinct privilege to formally open our event by inviting to the stage the Innotech Center Director, Dr. Maha Leia Villaravago, to deliver her opening remarks and to acknowledge the guests. Ma'am.
DepEd Secretary R.C. Balisacan, DepEd Secretary who is on his way, Secretary Sani Angara, World Bank Country Director, Zafer Mustafaoğlu, I hope I pronounce it right, our speaker this afternoon, UP Diliman Chancellor Edgardo Carlo Bistan II, His Excellency Abdul Malik Melvin Castellino, Ambassador of Malaysia, Education Attaché, Mr. Thomas Mendoza, Embassy of Timor-Leste, BP for Development, Daniel Petli, BP for Development of UP System, Daniel Petli, Vice Chancellor also for Student Affairs, Mr. Jose Carlo De Pano. And we also have here Deputy Director of Innotech, Coach Nasidre. We also have from World Bank, Tara Bitay. I also see here ASEC Georgina Yang of DepEd. And of course, colleagues, friends from UP Diliman, from elsewhere, thank you for coming this afternoon. We are delighted and grateful to welcome you to the inaugural session of the Innotech Seminar Series on Education, Innovation, and Technology, a dynamic new platform that brings together leaders, academics, and change makers committed to transforming education across Southeast Asia. Today is particularly special. We are joined by the distinguished guest whose work continues to shape global and regional education reform, Mr. Zafer Mustafaoğlu, World Bank Country Director for the Philippines, Brunei, and Malaysia. His presentation, Investing in Future Innovators, Reforms to Prepare for Knowledge Economies, sets the tone for what we envision this series to be: a bold, forward-looking exchange of ideas anchored in evidence and driven by impact. Southeast Asia is at a critical juncture. Over 55% of the region's population is under 30, a powerful demographic advantage. But realizing this potential requires education systems that are inclusive, future-ready, and grounded in innovation. The World Bank's 2023 Southeast Asia Education Report noted that while access to education has expanded, more than 60% of students are not reaching minimum proficiency in reading and math by the end of primary school. We are also looking ahead to an ASEAN digital economy projected to hit $1 trillion by 2030. However, if our students lack foundational skills, digital literacy, and problem-solving abilities, they will struggle to participate meaningfully in knowledge economies. Worse, the region risks deepening inequality and reducing the mobility of its labor force, both within and across borders. At Innotech, we are clear about our role. We are a catalyst, not just conveners. We go beyond conversations. We pilot, co-create, and scale solutions that work. Our 2035 vision: to be a leading force in shaping learners into the change makers of tomorrow. This drives every initiative we undertake, including this seminar series. As Southeast Asia moves toward deeper labor market integration, our education systems must equip learners not just with knowledge, but with the adaptability and cross-border competencies needed to thrive in dynamic regional economy. Resilience is no longer optional. It is a foundational attribute for learners navigating rapid technological change, economic shifts, and increasing mobility across ASEAN. This afternoon also marked a major milestone: the ceremonial signing of key agreements with institutions that share our vision. These include the Department of Education, Secretary Angara is already here, Department of Economy, Planning and Development, UP Diliman, and the Second Congressional Commission on Education. Our momentum is just starting. In just 2 days, on Friday, May 16, We will continue this regional dialogue at the 16th Innotech International Conference at the Manila Hotel, co-organized with the Department of Education. There we will explore AI in education, unlocking potential through accessible and equitable learning. These engagements form part of our broader strategy to foster collaboration and bold thinking in the region. Let us use this seminar series to drive collective momentum towards systems that are not only digitally equipped, but equity-driven, evidence-based, and responsive to the real needs of our learners. Thank you again for being part of this inaugural session. We hope today inspires not only meaningful conversations, but also lasting collaboration. We look forward to your continued support and participation in the seminar series to come every month. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our keynote speaker and distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Zafer Mustafaoğlu, Country Director for the Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei Darussalam of the World Bank.
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much for inviting the World Bank and myself to this important event, to this inaugural seminar series. It's a great honor and privilege to be here. Before I start the presentation, allow me to acknowledge Secretary SEAMEO Innoteche of the Department of Economy, Department of Economic Planning and Development with the new name DEPDEV, Secretary Sony Angara, Department of Education, Chancellor Edgar Vizan of the University of Philippines, Diliman, His Excellency Abdul Malik Marvin Castellino, Malaysian Ambassador to the Philippines, and of course, big thanks to you, Director Maha of the SEAMEO INNOTECH, and distinguished guests and colleagues. So today my presentation will be on basically innovation and within that perspective, the role of education and the human capital. I will try to give some basic key messages, and the key messages is that innovation is extremely important and critical for economies and for economic growth. And in the long term, for sustaining economic growth and reducing poverty, innovation is key for countries to move up on the ladder and move from low income to middle income to high income economies. My second message will be that when we look at East Asia, actually, the performance of East Asia and South Asia has been very strong over the past 50 years. And we have seen so many economies actually growing fast. And it is still one of the fast-growing regions. And then many countries moving up in the income ladders. There are also challenges. When we look at challenges, we see that within the South Asia and East Asia, Southeast Asia, not all countries have benefited to the same degree from innovation and productivity growth. There are new challenges, as we all observe today, in terms of trade, tariff policy uncertainties, increased economic uncertainties, aging in some economies, and their impact on protectionism and trade, and then knowledge spill over across countries, and then, of course, the economies. And my message will be that human capital, when we look at the factors determining innovation, of course, there are many factors from sort of policy environment to government support to other competition type dimension. But one key factor is actually the human capital. And there comes the role of education and the universities and the whole education system. And then there's a dual role there in the sense that the education system on one side educates the future innovators, but on the other side, it is also subject to continuous innovation in itself, and that will be important. And my final message will be more on the side of sense of urgency to actually take action. If we go to next slide, maybe the next one, why innovation matters. Before that, I would like to make a quick definition and maybe difference to highlight that when we talk about innovation, sometimes we talk about innovation in the sense of something new to the world, and that is actually moving the frontier and new discoveries. And then we also talk about innovation in the sense of diffusion and adoption of new technologies and ways of production. So innovation could be a shift of the frontier, new discoveries, or it could be more on the side of adoption and diffusion. And if you go to next one, when we look at the innovation within that perspective and the countries across this graph shows the GNI per capita on one axis and then the global innovation in the other axis. What it shows is that when we look at over time, actually, we see a positive correlation between innovation and per capita income, meaning higher per capita incomes countries, they have also higher innovation. And some of the South Asian countries are here. We see, of course, Korea a little bit up, but they're on the line. And the next one, what it shows again is that innovation helped Asian countries actually grow and climb the income ladder. And then this graph on the left side shows that again, GNI per capita, and then the other side, GNI per capita in 1990, and then 2022. Basically, it shows whether a country compared to 1990 moved up or not, or how much it moved. And then it has these lines of high income, middle income. What it shows is that if you look at horizontal and the high income group there, we see again Korea in the region compared to their level in 1990 where they were below high income, they moved up to high income. And there are only a handful of countries actually in the world that managed to move into high-income economy. And that's an important development. The second one on the right also shows that when we look at labor productivity, again, Asia is a fast-growing region, and compared to many other region and emerging development economies or advanced economies, it is growing fast, but there is some slowdown as well. That graph shows more clearly the slowdown. As you can see, the green line is the East Asia excluding China and some developing countries and emerging countries. What it shows is that starting from 2008 with the global financial crisis, there has been a slowdown in productivity and overall a growth deceleration in emerging markets. And that's very prominent. If you look at, for example, middle-income countries compared to 2000s, where they were growing at about 5% a year, now they are growing 3.5% a year. That's an important slowdown. The next one. That graph also shows something similar. What it shows is that distance between firms from the frontier, from the global frontier. One of this technology adoption, when we talk about technology adoption, is the diffusion of technologies and adoption of technologies. Meaning that when there are global firms at the frontier creating new technologies, how much the middle-income country or developing country firms are able to adopt those technologies and get closer to frontier. Basically, it shows that it is heterogeneous across some of these countries that we had the data, Vietnam, Malaysia, China, Indonesia, Philippines, and including Philippine services. It is heterogeneous, but there is some gap compared to frontier firms in the innovation and productivity ladder. If we go to next one, this shows a little bit a similar picture again to say that when we look at research and development spending per GDP and the level of compared normalizing with the level of per capita GDP with 2011 prices, and when we look at level of patents and again normalized by the per capita GDP, what we see is that there is a positive correlation between, per capita income and the patent or the R&D spending. And in the case of Southeast Asian countries, these blue dots, light blue dots compared to dark ones, they are many of them, actually several of them, are below the line, meaning they are performing less than expected according to their per capita income. This graph again shows something similar related to technology diffusion, is that when we look at per capita income and the share of establishment having the international certification or share of establishment having foreign technology certification, in a short sense, it means how much they are able to either get technologies from other firms and certifications or international good certification. Again, there is usually a positive correlation between per capita income and the performance. When we look at Southeast Asia, some countries are highlighted here. Again, it is below the line, meaning it is less than expected. Now, in addition to this, as I mentioned, there are new challenges, increased uncertainty in global trade and investment, very fast and rapid technological changes, including AI. Again, aging in some countries, aging population, and the climate change is very prominent in the case of Southeast Asia. All require more investment and more focus on innovation and productivity to be able to sustain economic growth. Now, with that background, I would like to focus a little bit on what are the factors that matter for innovation. As I was mentioning, there are many dimensions to it. A conducive environment, ability to secure returns on your investment, intellectual property rights, government support system, competition. But again, one key factor that I would like to focus today is human capital. And the human capital angle, if you go to next one, is very, I guess is very obvious also in this graph, is that this graph shows companies grouped by, or firms grouped by level of innovation, from low innovation firms to medium and high innovation firms. If you look at the light yellow bars, that's the one high innovation firms. And on the y-axis, on the x-axis, it shows the college degree level, high school, college, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM majors, and management, economics, and law. What it shows is that a very high level of STEM and college degrees, especially in high income, in high productivity, high innovation firms. And this graph's only for China and Vietnam, where we had the data. But it's the same when we look at across the globe. Actually, there's a very clear connection between level of skills in the economy and the ability to innovate. And if you go to next one, now key challenge is that human capital is so important for innovation and for economy to adopt technologies and move forward. But when we look at South Asian countries in terms of the level of education and understanding, understanding and ability to learn, what it shows is that in many countries, actually, the share of 10 years olds who cannot read and understand an age-appropriate text is very high in some countries on the right side. That is, of course, a big challenge and a big obstacle, and that's also important, I guess, relevant point for the education system. This also shows something similar, which shows it shows two things basically. One is the year of schooling in the labor force. That's very important because your labor force at the end of the day, their level of skill will determine innovation and productivity. The more you have is the better. But it also shows that learning adjusted schooling, meaning not only how many years you had schooling, but also how much you learned compared to some other countries. It shows that in Southeast Asian countries, compared to some countries like South Korea, for example, high-performing countries or advanced countries, year of schooling in the labor force is less than those countries, but also when it is learning adjusted, it even lesser. It goes down further, and that's an important challenge for the region. Very quickly, this is something similar. It shows that educational level of the working age population has increased. In general, there are very positive developments. But when we look at the tertiary education, which is the light blue line there, advanced, showed as advanced, it's still very low. And in many countries, actually, still we are talking about this dark blue bars, very basic education level. Now, shifting a little bit to the universities. What it shows here is that in the case of universities, this is across, again, region and some other regions compared to countries. It shows two things. One is these East Asian countries are marked in yellow boxes. It shows what's called the H index, which is the number of is an index that looks at and normalizes number of publication with citation, meaning looks at how many publications per researcher and then what is the citation on each publication. And it takes the lowest value there. And what it shows across countries, again, is that generally speaking in the region, both the H index, these bars and green boxes are lower compared to other countries. Looking at further the performance of universities, here we are looking at in terms of university technology and skill, technology transfer links per researchers, and then also the entities with more or less autonomy, or with autonomy or no autonomy. So it looks like whether the universities or research centers or public research centers are able to have some autonomy, budget, and appoint merit-based staff or reward research orientation and innovation, or less so. But it shows in both graphs, and the second one looks at the governance perspective, again, for the same universities. It shows that in both cases, when there is more autonomy, when there is better governance, actually there's a positive effect on research and the technology transfer. If you go to next one, this is something very similar, but it looks at collaboration with the industry. One of the key factors for innovation and technology adoption is also the collaboration between private sector and universities. Or in other words, collaboration between research and the collaboration with implementation or production. And again, it shows that when you have more participation from industries, you have better outcomes in terms of technology transfers and in terms of relevance innovation for the private sector. Now, my third part is more on the side of more on education and what should Southeast Asian countries can do. Here I would like to again highlight the dual task of education system. On one side, innovation is vital for improving education quality, efficiency, and equity of learning opportunities. That is more like looking inside, keeping a mirror to ourselves and looking inside to see how we can improve educational outcomes, teaching, and how we can actually improve the delivery of education. But education also fosters societal innovation by developing skills like critical thinking, creativity, imagination, and this type of social and emotional skills. And also education matters in the uptake of digital technologies. We know that when we talk about skills and digital gap, we often refer to people's ability to learn new digital system and technologies versus some people not having that skills and then lagging behind. Again, when we look at some countries, what we see is that many countries which did well in innovation, actually they put a lot of emphasis on human capital. And there is a very strong emphasis in human capital in countries like South Korea, Singapore, Turkey. South Korea, as we all know, they have a very close link between research institutions, universities, and private sector. They put a lot of emphasis on STEM measure and the education of people there. Singapore is, when we look at, actually, has managed to create a very conducive environment that when you look at the sort of top 100 new innovative firms and startups, actually majority of them are located in Singapore, and that shows their focus on talent development and international collaboration. Turkey is also has been putting a lot of emphasis on innovation in recent years. It is a dedicated institution called Scientific Research and Investigation institution, and they are putting a lot of emphasis in terms of providing public support, in terms of focusing on education and human capital to support innovation. Now, on this one, I would like to, on the same logic, look at what we can say maybe hard and soft skills. On one side, this graph on the left shows the share of STEM graduates in some of the Southeast Asian countries. And the graph on the left side shows the soft skills in terms of socio-economic learning programs and the thinking and ability to learn basically. Again, what it shows is that compared to OECD average or Korea or Singapore, in many countries, actually, percent of tertiary population with STEM is relatively low. And then this graph again shows the impact, very positive impact of social and emotional learning and learning programs on the overall learning outcomes. And if we go to next one, actually, I would like to highlight maybe 2-3 examples from these countries. Again, Colombia and Republic of Korea have been putting a lot of emphasis on the social and emotional learning. But in Turkey, actually, they did a pedagogical intervention in 130 primary schools covering 11,000 students and 425 teachers. Basically, they tried to create a sense of information deprivation and quantifying children's urge to acquire information. And the impact, according to a rigorous evaluation, seems to be positive, meaning there is a positive impact on curiosity, knowledge, and retention in terms of science test scores and persistent into middle years. A similar exercise or intervention in Indonesia, they call it growth mindset, meaning that effort to develop these skills across more than 2,400 public junior secondary schools and 160,000 students. What it shows again, after structured lesson delivered in school, there seems to be a very positive impact on growth and growth mindset and test scores and rational standardized exam of maths. Again, all this shows that when we talk about innovation, technology adoption, and skills, on one side, the importance of providing key STEM type skills to the society and students, but at the same time, on the other side, the critical thinking, the social and emotional learning, the self-awareness, working together or a team are all considered important elements of ability to innovate. And then the global shifts pushes us on the same dimension. This graph shows that, as you all know very well, AI will have some impact on jobs, depending on where we are on the jobs and skill. But key point is that for some, like non-routine cognitive skills, it will be supportive and augmenting. And then for some, maybe some others, like automation, routine physical or routine cognitive, there will be some impact from automation and from computers or from robots. Again, at the end, what it shows is that there is need to skill or reskill the population to actually navigate these changes, but move people towards those corners where actually you can benefit and augment capabilities with new technologies. And in this regard, what I would like to highlight is that when we look at AI technology and innovative technologies in education, actually, especially in the case of digital technologies, the global experience is a little bit mixed, in the sense that when looking at some international surveys, it shows that the impact of digital technologies has not yet been delivering the promised very strong positive results. But this could be also due to type of technology, reach out, or knowledge to use those technologies in schools and teaching and etc. And there are different aspects of learning methods to say that from teaching at the right level, meaning not only grouping students according to their age group, but looking at their capacity to learn and then grouping in that way. And some international studies shows positive results from that. And tailoring feedback and using AI in a way that actually expand capabilities and teaching capabilities in schools or some of the administrative functions, and using innovative technologies as much as possible to use in that way. And if you go to next one, what I would like to highlight is that, again, digital technologies in schools can facilitate, if they are the right technologies, if they are used in the right way, They can facilitate innovative pedagogic models such as, again, online laboratories and real-time assessment, simulations, including remote or virtual online laboratories, international collaborations, overcoming geographic borders and teaching hours, real-time formative assessment and skill-based assessment or feedback mechanism, and e-learning for people who are self-learners. And then in this regards, I would like to start concluding to say that, again, human capital is extremely important for knowledge society, for technology adoption, for innovation, and for technology creation. And then, but creating knowledge, creating human capital, start with basic foundational skills and strengthening basic reading, math, and science and socio-emotional skills, vocational education and life learning systems, advanced system to reinforce cognitive and, again, socio-emotional skills, creating thinking, creativity, imagination, problem solving, and then universities and research institutions to strengthening the governance of universities and management, increasing the collaboration between universities and the private sector firms to ensure that actually research and knowledge created in universities can spill over and can be transferred to economy, to production and firms and services, and EdTech to development and implementation of evaluation programs and new technologies and learning activities to strengthen the teacher training. Last slide to say that what we are doing as World Bank actually in education space and in innovation and technology adoption, we have very strong programs across the globe in several countries, in many countries, in different regions. But looking at our regions, I would like to highlight that one of the key fundamental aspects of teaching quality is the teacher's quality. There's a lot of focus on ensuring that you have the good quality teachers. And we have been focusing on basic education and teachers' quality in this regard with two projects. One is already under implementation. One is under preparation and with the leadership of Secretary Angara and his team, and of course with the support of DepDev and Sek Balisekan. We have been working on a new project on skill development, and we have a new actual project in Laos, for example, on skill and growth, Cambodia on higher education development, and then we have several flagship type reports on education, human capital. Actually, one human capital report that we disseminated in the Philippines, again with Sek Balisekan's participation last June. It was on human capital in the case of Philippines. And then with this, basically, I would like to conclude here again. If I go to the next one, yeah, I don't have anything else. I would like to say Maraming Salamat. Thanks so much.